When I get done with a really hard workout, the last thing I want to think about doing is going to a yoga class several hours later. Sometimes those yoga classes, especially ones geared towards athletes, actually become a workout in themselves, and that's the last thing I want to think about. So why not just tack on a short yoga practice right after a hard workout? And you can be sweaty, it doesn't matter, you don't even need yoga pants. I'm probably going to change my top and maybe my shorts. It gets kind of nasty, but it's going to be short. So let's get started.
So I'm hoping I'm going to have enough juice in my battery for my GoPro so I can finish this. But if I don't, then it's probably too long and I should probably shoot it again. I didn't have enough batteries the last time, so I apologize. First thing we want to do is let's just get a nice little stretch here. And lots of times when we start a yoga practice, we start really, really slow. But if we're already warmed up, then we really don't need to do a real warm up. But lots of times what we need to do is kind of work the things that we've overworked, but work on the things that kind of counteract some of the things that we've done, such as forward bends. So lots of times what I like to do is start with a little bit of a back bend, and that's what this focus is going to be. And so anytime you think of a back bend, you might think about this overarching back bend, but that's not what we're looking for. So you put your hands up in the air, plant your feet, especially the toe mounds of your big toes, and think about your pelvis tilting back. So the top of your pelvis tilting back, and that's all you really want to do. You want to think stretching the psoas, the front of the thighs. And what that does is it gives a release to your hamstrings. And so it doesn't have to be too much. In fact, you don't want to do too much, especially if you've done a workout. And you also want to open up the chest, because lots of times we will do too much of this, especially if we're cycling. So for us to stretch the shoulders this way doesn't seem to make too much sense. So we'll open our arms best as possible out to the side and then open up the chest. So think if you can raise the sternum to the sky, and then see if you can even reach the palms behind you and really open up the shoulders. And then also the pelvis tilts back, raise the sternum, and feel that. You might even feel a little bit of ab work. So feel this right here. And now reach your hands up in the air. See if you can do another back stretch here. And then come forward into a forward fold. And forward folds feel really, really good, but we spend so much time actually in a forward position, a lot of forward bending position, whether we're sitting down or whether we're on a bike for too long of a time. And so I like to use forward folds sparingly post-workout, but they do feel really, really good, especially when you need to do some hamstring stretch. So what I like to do is kind of swing my hips back and forth, bending one knee and then the next, and really feeling the lower back get a little bit of a stretch as well. And anytime you do a stretch, you want to avoid overstretching. And I know that the muscles are warm and theirs is going to feel really, really good. You'll probably go deeper post-workout than you would if you started the day with a practice like this. And that's why a morning practice is going to look a lot different than a post-workout practice, because you're a lot more loose after a workout. Now, let's see if you can put your hands on your shins and then do a little bit of a mini back bend here. And I don't even want to say a back bend, but what we want to do is we want to really stretch the spine here. And it's going to hopefully bring a little bit of compression away. And so think about your tailbone reaching away. So your tailbone is kind of here. And then the crown of your head reaching forward. And see if you can feel some decompression there. Think about your hips pulling away. And now let's come into another forward fold here. Plant the palms here. And let's step back into, not really a plank just yet, but we'll put the knees onto your mat, untuck the toes, and bring your chest to the mat. So this part is really important because lots of times we do a Cobra and we just kind of go and we don't spend too much time in Cobra. But Cobras are particularly important for athletes because they are stretching the psoas. But if you do them incorrectly, or if you do them without mindfulness, you will find that you actually do a little bit more damage to the back, and you want to avoid that. So I'm actually going to scoot back just a little bit so I can get into my other camera. So with this, you can bring the chest up just a little bit, and then you're not pressing in with your palms. So lots of times we think about Cobra and we press in with the palms and then we crunch in the lower back. So we want to think differently here. So see if you can raise your chest off just a scotch in the mat. And then you can plant your hands out to the side because they can give you a little bit of, I don't want to say leverage, but it's really not. You're not really pressing too much in with your hands. And now press the top of your thighs. Press your thighs into the mat best as possible. And what happens there? So the tops of your thighs are pressing in, your pubic bone is actually pressing into the mat. And see if you can take a couple of breaths here. So this is what your back bend should feel like and look like. And then come down. And so let's start this again. So you're bringing your chest, your sternum up just a little bit without using your hands. Roll your shoulders back. Now press the top of the thighs into the mat, your pubic bone into the mat, and then see if you can raise up a little bit higher. And then what might help if this is giving you a little bit of lower back stress is if you turn your heels away from you and your big toes towards you. So your legs can be far apart or close together, it doesn't matter, but you want to think about internal rotation of the thighs. That's what's most important. And then come down. And let's do one more with integrity. So bring your chest off the mat just a little bit. Shoulders roll back. Press your thighs into the mat. Pubic bone into the mat. See if you can roll the top of your pelvis, off the mat. Just a little bit. And then come down. Plant your palms just below or just inside your shoulders, and let's press up. And let's come into a nice little child's pose. And we're going to stay here for just a moment, reaching your arms ahead as far as possible. So think about the extension starting from your fingertips and then extending all the way to your tailbone, and how this might reduce compression. Now see if you can move the pelvis back and forth. So tilt the top of the pelvis up towards the sky and then down below, just little millimeters. And see if this might kind of loosen any tightness that might have accumulated during your workout. And then press into your palms, tuck your back toes into a short downward facing dog. Pressing in with the knuckles of your index fingers and your thumbs. That's where most of the weight should be pressed. You can pedal your feet back and forth if that feels good, but we're not going to be here for too long because downward dog, if you actually study it, can be a lot more of an advanced pose, but we're not going to stay here long. So let's draw the right foot towards your hands and come up into a little bit of a back bend. It's not much of a back bend here. So lots of times we see people in yoga classes and they will really do this beautiful arch and it looks so wonderful and great, but that feels good. That feels good for maybe about 1% of the population. What we want to do is we want to stretch the psoas here. So what we'll do is you need to think a plumb line from the top of your hip down to your knee. And if this hurts your knee, you can fold your mat up a little bit or place a towel underneath there. And what this will do is it'll really stretch the psoas here. And so this is not a back bend here per se, but it does help in kind of counteracting the effects of so much of this. So this actually is part of what happens in a back bend is that the psoas is stretched. And so what feels good for me every time I will do a yoga practice is I will take my left arm and kind of pull it over my head around and kind of make a crescent shape with my side body. And this is something we don't normally do in life at all, is bending these lateral bends really, really good. And you also feel it a little bit in your side body, the top of the hip. And I know that there's a lot of hip flexion going on in, well, the front of the hip flexion going on in cyclists especially. And then let's bring the arm down and place the palms, tuck the back toes, bring the other foot down, and then come into your downward facing dog. And let's do a quick little practice of our cobras again. So let's place the knees down, untuck the toes, bring the chest down, and let's feel what this feels like. So place the palms. You can place your hands still outside, or you can place them close together. It feels really, it's really up to you what feels good. But bring the chest off the mat. Sink your thighs into the mat, your pubic bone, and then see if you can come up a little bit. And then place your palms close to your shoulders, or tuck your toes again, and come into a quick downward facing dog. Let's do the other side. Again, pedal your feet. And then right foot steps forward. No, I'm sorry, left foot steps forward. I usually start with my left. I don't know why I started with my right, I don't know. So again, plumb line from the top of your right thigh down to your knee. So you can think about the right angle here. That's fine. But we're really working with the right hip here. So I didn't mention this on the other side, but see if you can press your shin into the mat. So again, if this hurts your knee, you want to double up your mat. So I'm not going to do it because it's going to throw me off. But I'll usually have a towel nearby, especially if I'm in a hot yoga class. So see if you can really stand up straight here. So practicing the tailbone kind of tucking and then the top of the pelvis moving back a little bit. So you're not doing this, and you're not doing this, but you are coming straight up. See if you can stand tall, and see if you can just slightly tuck the tailbone, bringing the top of the pelvis back just a scotch, and you'll probably feel a lot of barking in the top of your thigh. And then reach your right arm overhead. Again, this is repeating what we started the practice with. And then reaching over, doing a lateral stretch. You're still maintaining a little slight press into the shin of your right leg. And then let's come out, plant your palms, tuck your toes, and come into a little downward dog. Did you like that, dog? So this is really a no-nonsense flow. There's no frills here. And athlete yoga should not be anything too complicated. Because why make things much more complicated than they need to be? And so let's tuck the toes. Come your chest on the mat. Let's try that Cobra once again. So shoulders roll back, hands out to the side. You decide where you like to place your hands. Bring your chest up first, sternum rises, and then really press your thighs into the mat. Your pubic bone comes into the mat. The top of your pelvis rolls up. See if you can do a little bit of a back bend here. And then come down, plant your hands, tuck your toes, come into a short dog. And then we're going to do the rest of this actually seated. Actually, we'll kind of stay here. Lots of times what people do is they will love pigeon pose. And what we'll do is we'll do a modified pigeon, but if you need some bolsters, grab them now. I bought this for my dog. You can have some of those nearby. So grab those now. And we'll start with we'll start here and bring your, let me see, we did the, yeah. So let's start with our left side this time. So bring your left knee close to your left hand, best as possible. And let's shimmy your right leg behind you. I probably should start with the other hand, but it doesn't matter. So start. So your left knee is forward, your right knee is behind you. And if this doesn't feel really good, place your hands a little bit further away so you're not putting as much pressure onto your front knee. If you have blocks, you can even brace yourself a little higher so you're pressing more into your hands than you are into your knee. But this is my bad knee. This is my high school injury. So this actually doesn't feel bad for me. So, and so if this feels really good, if you feel the back of your, I'm losing my brain. If you get a nice little stretch into the back hip, so the right hip, then stay there. But if you want a little bit more into your front hip, see if you can roll a little bit onto your left hip. So roll your weight there. And that might feel good. And then if you want to move your back leg, shimmy your back leg a little bit, do that. And then if you're not getting enough in your hip, then slowly, inch by inch, walk your left foot a little closer to your left knee. So it's actually moving a little bit closer to your right hand. And so you're still kind of leaned onto your left hip. And that might feel good for you there. But if you want to get a little bit more pressure into the front hip and even stretch into the right leg, press into your left hand and see if you can straighten yourself a little bit. So now you're pressing in with the top of the right foot. And you're also pressing in with the blade of the left foot. So they're pressing with the top of the right foot and the outer blade of the left foot. So the left foot is actually flexed. So this is a stretch and a strengthen at the same time. And that's what we try to do in yoga best as possible. Whether it does succeed, that's certainly up to you. Lots of times we go too hard in yoga or not hard enough. It's just a matter of you finding what your edge is. And lots of times in a yoga class, we love pigeon because we do this. And that feels really, really good. But if you are seated for a long time, you actually want to emphasize more the back bend side. And again, so the top of the pelvis is tilting back a little bit. That's going to give you a lot more stretch into the back leg. All right, so now let's walk the left foot back over towards your hip. And then just kind of press into your hands and roll back. And then just kind of windshield wiper your hips back and forth. Kind of wiggle. Like somebody called this stripper circles. You're going like this. Yeah, whatever. All right, so now we got the other side. So let's draw the right knee forward. So right knee comes forward. So the right knee is bent, and then slide the left hip back. And so this might be your pigeon pose, and that's okay. If you want to grab this on Instagram, that's your prerogative. And so this is fine. This is a great stretch for your psoas of your left leg. And again, you want to think about the back bend. So the top of the hip is rolling back. So you're not compressing into your lower back. You're actually using the stretch here, from here to do a little bit of a back bend. So lots of times we do this and compress too much in the lower back. You don't want to do that. You want to think top of the hip, back a little bit. And so, again, if this is too much on your right knee, then you'll want to actually bring your hands back further. If you want to get a little bit more in the front hip, you'll just kind of walk the right foot a little bit forward towards your left hand. And so at first, you're going to be heavily on your right hip, and that's fine. Lots of yin practices, you'll be in this position for a long time. This is a swan. But if this feels good for you and this isn't taxing your knee too much, if you're feeling some sort of stretch, then stay there. Or you can come up on your hands a little bit more. Press into your hands and see if you can walk your foot a little bit more towards your left hand. And then press in with your hands. And then the top of the pelvis rolls back. Again, the outer blade of your right foot is going to be pressing into the mat, and so is the top of your left foot. So hopefully you've cooled down a little bit. Let's roll onto your right hip and then draw the left leg forward. So now let's just kind of stretch out we're going to do some lying twists, and these feel really, really good. I'm going to get my dog pillow out of the way. And after this is going to be a quick shavasana. So just remember that if you have any sort of neck pillow or something you'd like to employ, then go grab that right now. So let's come on to our backs. And what I like to do here is my twists are a little bit different than some you might see in yoga classes, and it's just because it works for me for really stretching out the top hip. And so take your right knee on top of, your right foot on top of your left knee. And this might feel really, really good for you at first. Over time, what you can do is you can draw the left knee a little bit towards you, but it should not be stressful on your right knee. And you want to keep the right foot flexed to keep the hinge joint of your knee intact. But lots of times, if it's much more passive, much easier for you to just keep it here, then by all means do so. And then you just kind of stretch the skin away on your right thigh. That might feel good. So the twist part is what feels most juicy for me. And so you can put your hand onto your your right heel. And if that's not possible, then don't do it. But you'll want to guide your right heel towards the left. So do it really slowly, mindfully. And you'll probably feel a lot of stretch on the top and the side of your right hip. And this feels really, really juicy for me. And this is what I like to do in terms of my twists. And you stay here if this feels good. If you're not crazy about that twist, if this doesn't feel juicy for you, then you can grab the top of the right knee and just walk it towards the mat. So twists are really, really good to kind of release any of the ickiness that might exist in your body and your mind. Especially recline twists just like this. And hopefully you've noticed a shift in your energy as well. So let's roll back up slowly. My stomach is growling. So right heel onto the mat, left ankle on top of right knee. How's that for a twister? So this might feel good for you. This is kind of like your figure four. So again, if you want to grab for your thigh, that's fine. So it's kind of like a pigeon, sort of, kind of, but not. And just start here. And if that feels good, then stay. If you need a little bit more of pressure, then just press the skin away of the left thigh.
So then we're going to start this twist with, you can try to grab your right heel, and if you can't, that's fine. Then you'll gradually shift your hips over towards the right.
So lots of times we will go to yoga class and think that it's too easy or too hard. And sometimes when you practice yoga at home, it can be just right. And if this particular stretch doesn't do anything for you, you can just bend your left knee a little bit towards your right shoulder. And lots of times when you go to a yoga class, we can take that competitiveness into our practice. And then so you look and you say, well, if this person can do this, then why can't I? And it can disrupt the yoga practice, because ultimately, every time you step onto a yoga mat, even every time you step onto your bike, and every time you step onto the running track, you're actually a different person. And so just being aware of where you are at that given moment is what's most important. You'll slowly draw the knees back towards each other, and then just windshield wiper your legs back and forth. And then if you have some bolsters or blankets or something, lots of times if I don't have anything around me, I will actually sit on my thumbs. That sometimes gives me a little bit of a back release. And just let yourself sit for a few moments. Again, notice your shift in energy. So, oh, here comes the dogs. The dogs are barking at somebody. And so many times that I get back from a run or a ride or a really strong workout, I'm in that go, go, go moment. But in order for the body to restore, you'll need to guide the energy towards the restorative mode. And it's not a matter of you starting. If you're going at 60 miles an hour, it makes no sense for you to expect your body and mind to come to a quick stop. You just gradually ease your pedal off the accelerator, maybe tap the brakes just a little bit. You come to a gradual stop. It's less jarring on your car, certainly your brakes, certainly anybody behind you. So the body and the mind need time to slow down. They need time to rest. And those moments of rest allow the healing. And that's really where the strengthening occurs. You might feel that speed work or endurance work makes you stronger, faster, allows you to go further. But the strength comes from letting the body rest, letting the mind rest. And it's important to recognize when each are needed. When is it appropriate for us to go hard? When is it appropriate for us to slow down? And we are the only people who can make that determination. No one else can. Because you're a different person each moment. No training program can decide what's best for you. There's recommendations that are wise. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide what's best. You can't force things beyond their capacity. Many sports mantras will tell us to go harder, but there is a stopping point. But if you know your edge, you know that one place that you can go that's just a little bit beyond your comfort zone. And then know when it's time to back off. That's where strength happens. That's the wisdom. So slowly reach your arms over your head. Reach your feet away from you and give yourself a nice body stretch. So one heel might stretch at a time. Reset your hips. And then draw yourself into a little ball and roll onto one side. And when it's appropriate for you, come on up to a sitting position. So again, there are times when it's appropriate to go to a yoga class. There's a lot of great yoga practices, a lot of great yoga studios that are catered to athletes and cater to athletes' needs. Know the difference. Know when it's appropriate to build strength and know when it's appropriate to settle down. There are some yoga practices that help build strength, that build that stamina. And there are some yoga practices such as yin that help you restore. But the key is you want to practice, do some sort of yoga practice as much as possible, even if it's 10, 15 minutes a day, to help keep the body resilient and help keep the mind soft and keep the mind, it actually helps with your focus. It actually helps with your concentration as you go on to whatever sport that you have. So I hope that you enjoyed this practice and employ it whenever you need to and have a peaceful rest of your day. Namaste.